it's been an interesting year, to say the least.
Yeah, it's been tough, man.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that personally, and our band is probably better off than a lot of other bands and a lot of other musicians. We're very fortunate in that aspect. So, you know, financially, we've been able to pull through, but
yeah,
it's difficult anyways, you know.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. I was thinking back to the last few shows that I saw, and I remember we saw each other in Seattle when we came through, and that was one of the last bigger shows I saw. And then I saw a couple of other club shows, and then that was it, man. You know,
so it's crazy.
It was done, and I think one of the last shows I went to was in December, January, and it sucks.
Yeah, it was weird when we were on South America when they canceled the tour. So that was really strange, actually. But you know.
So how much more did you guys have left?
Well, we had plenty more. We were pretty much, I would say that we were roughly halfway through the touring cycle for the album.
Oh, that's it, huh? You guys started kind of in the Seattle area, or in the Canada or Pacific Northwest? I don't remember how you guys started.
No, like the US, like we started with the Slayer tour, supporting Slayer in the US in May 2019. And then we came back to the US that fall and did a headline run, and we started on the West Coast and made our way up north.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I hope you guys are all staying healthy and safe, at least. I know we're all
so far.
Not going right.
Hopefully, I'll get my shots soon. So
yeah. Which ones are working their way through? You're in Sweden right now?
Yeah.
You get the AstraZeneca. Is that the one that is available?
Well, you can. We have 4, I think, right now. It's Pfizer, BioNTech, AstraZeneca is one of them, Johnson, and Moderna.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are the 4 I know of, anyways. But you can choose. Like, you get the one you get.
Yeah. I got lucky. I thought I got lucky. I got the Johnson & Johnson shot. But I and my wife got the Moderna shot, and she had a really bad reaction to that one. And my son got the Pfizer shot. So all 3 of us are kind of, we're like a case study.
Well, the big discussion here with Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca is the potential blood clot, side effects that you can get from it. But it's like, I think the risk is like 1 in 2 or 3 million or something that you'll get that. And it's apparently it's mainly women who gets it too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how unsafe it is.
Yeah, I just got lucky, I guess. I showed up. I had my neighbor did one of these little pop-up. She was sort of helping up with some pop-up places.
Okay.
And she called me up at like 12:15 one afternoon, and she's like, "If you go here now, you can get a shot." And I'm like, "Oh, all right." And I showed up, and like within an hour, it all happened. I had a shot in my arm.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was getting a Johnson & Johnson shot either. You just roll the dice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they kind of had the same. I think they had the same side effect as AstraZeneca, like the blood clots. But I think it's a super rare thing that happens, and as long as you're aware that it can happen, I guess it's fine, because some people have gotten it, only like there's only a few that actually died from it, but so I don't know. Definitely a lot more people die from the actual disease. So
yeah, for sure, man. Very much for sure. Well, thanks for the meeting this morning, or this afternoon for you. So I don't know if you checked out the show. I've got a new show on the air called Between the Lines, and the show is kind of to support the Record of the Month Club that Gimme Metal's got going on right now. And so it's been cool. So I started with the High on Fire record, and I talked to Matt Pike for a while about his first record, and we kind of set the template for what I wanted to do with the show. And it's just kind of the whole show will be dedicated to Amon Amarth and this record. And what I'd love to be able to do is just talk about the record. We'll talk about what was going on at that time with the record, and we're talking about One Cent from the Golden Hall. That'll be your first record, and it can be kind of cool. We can just do a deep dive into what you guys were going through at that time, and it's a long time ago, but it could be fun. We could talk about I know.
I remember a lot of those days.
Anyway, that's cool. Yeah, I was going to send you the questions in advance, just in case, but I wasn't sure.
We'll see. Maybe I'll have some good anecdotes to bring out for you.
Yeah. So, we've done this before. I like to just kind of keep it conversational, and we, depending on how the conversation goes, we'll just kind of take a direction and go with it. But I've got a general template for the interview, and I'll just give you a heads up now in case you wanted to start thinking about some stuff. I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about, what led up to the recording of that record. So maybe some of the, the early days of the band, and then what was going on at that time in the metal scene for you guys. And then we could talk a little bit about the making of the record and where you guys recorded it and stuff like that. And then we'll just kind of go from there, the artwork, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's sure.
Okay, cool.
No problem.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Johan, for joining today. And so let's talk about the formation of Amon Amarth and what led up to the recording of the debut album, One Cent from the Golden Hall.
Well, Amon Amarth grew out of another band called Scum that formed in 1988 by guitarist Olavi Mikkonen and a couple of other guys, and they split up in 91 because they had some differences of opinions. But then when the band reformed, I came in as a singer because I knew the other guitar player. We were in the same class, and maybe like a year later, we did some lineup changes, and the musical direction changed a little bit as well. So we kind of figured it would be better to start a fresh band because Scum never released anything except like a demo, really. And the demo that we recorded as Scum didn't quite live up to our expectations because we could record for free in a studio that was located in the rehearsal place, like in the compound where we had a rehearsal place. And but you only had 3 days to record. So when you're not experienced, recording 5 songs over 3 days, that's you got to cut some corners. So it didn't come out really, really well, unfortunately. But it kind of sort of anyways gave us some ideas of how to move forward. So we took this experience from that and went in to record another demo. And then by that time, we had changed our band name twice. So first to a name where we later realized there already was a band in Sweden with that name. And then Amon Amarth. So we released that demo, The Arrival of the Fimble Winter. We released that in 1994. And at the time we were playing, like in Sweden, it's very common in suburbs and cities that you have youth clubs. Basically, it's city funded places where kids can go hang out and shoot pool. Some of them have rehearsal places like the one we were in. They have cafes. some even have like concert, like a small concert hall, like maybe for in our place, the place was like 300-400 capacity actually. So it's a pretty big place.
Yeah.
And those places, you know, kids would put on shows there with bands, like sometimes pretty big bands, like well, big and but like Dissection and you know, bands like that actually had albums out and that were becoming really popular. They would come. They actually played at our youth club twice. So
that's cool. Nice.
And we were opening up for them there. So we would play at those areas around Stockholm, those types of places. Occasionally, you know, we'd play a bar or something, but mainly those youth clubs. And after a while, we felt that we needed to rehearse more because we shared rehearsal place with 2 other bands, or was it 3 other bands? So we had like 2 days a week that we could rehearse, and we felt that wasn't enough. So we, together with another band that we were really close friends with called Excretion, we got another rehearsal place in a closed down school. So we moved in there and we started writing for a new demo, writing songs for that. And just like, I think 2 or 3 weeks before we were supposed to record a new demo, we had a burglary in the rehearsal place, and they stole all our equipment except one broken amplifier and the drums. They left the drums, probably the most valuable things in there. But yeah, so that was a big setback, because obviously we didn't really have any money. So it took us quite a long time to get new gear, basically, and to be able to come back and start recording. But funnily enough, during that period of time, we were approached by a label from Singapore called Pulverized Records, and there was a number of labels that wanted to sign us during that time, but we were only interested in like a 1 release deal, and Pulverized were the only ones who offered us like a 1 mini CD deal. So for us, it was a big deal to instead of doing like demo tapes, to actually put out a CD. So instead of recording a new demo, we made like an EP with 5 songs, 2 from the previous demos and 3 new songs, which became Sorrow Throughout the 9 Worlds. And that release like opened up the possibility for us to actually play some shows even outside of Sweden. So we played our very first 2 shows in Germany, like in Weimar, in the southern East Germany, and 1 show in Berlin. So, which was basically us being drunk for 5 days straight, but it was fun. So anyhow, after we released that album, or after that release, our drummer left the band. He felt he couldn't keep up with the double kick drums, so he was out, and we got in touch with a guy that we didn't know, because we put up signs and a record store in Stockholm, which was pretty famous, called Sound Pollution. And this guy, he went in there, he saw the sign, and he's like, I want this gig. So we had done those little things where you cut like strips, and so people can pull one and call. He took all of them. He took all the strips. And that was Martin Lopez, who later became the drummer for Opeth. So
nice. Yeah.
So he got the job as a drummer, and then we moved again. We moved to a better rehearsal place closer to Stockholm, and started writing for the new album. So at that time, we were approached by some pretty big labels, actually. Nuclear Blast contacted us, and that was a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we asked around with some people that we knew. I think while we talked to Matti from Dismember, we talked to some other bands, and like pretty much everybody said that if you're gonna do business with Nuclear Blast, get a lawyer. Basically, that's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nuclear Blast is a big label, and they've done some great work. So I'm sure they're really good to work with. But that was their opinion.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay. But it was for us, it was a lot of money, and we felt like, oh, this looks really cool. But it was like a 6-album deal or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, 6 albums. So that's a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, considering exactly where you were at the time, right? Leading up to there.
Exactly. So just as we were like basically going to like have that a lawyer look over that contract, Metal Blade Records got in touch with us with their offer.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they were offering almost 5 times the money.
Wow.
And we realized that Nuclear Blast deal was shit. Like that was like a really, they were trying to get something really cheap, basically, and tie it down for like, so we basically, this was back in the day of the fax. So we pretty much just put a postage stamp on the front page and faxed the whole thing back. And the postage stamp just said, "Is this a joke?" So then they got back to us, and we can negotiate anything, blah blah. But by that time we said, "Fuck you guys," if you're gonna do that kind of dealing, like fuck it, we're not gonna deal with that. So we signed with Metal Blade, and the first album, obviously, One Cent from the Golden Hall. We were supposed to record that in legendary Sunlight Studios in Stockholm, because the previous release, so the mini CD, the EP, we recorded that with Peter Tätgren from Hypocrisy in his studio, The Abyss. And we loved working with Peter, and we had like a great experience with him. But when we were going to record the new album, we felt that we needed to, we all had day jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't take time off really to be in the studio for the extended amount of time that we needed to be there. So we decided, let's record in Stockholm. That way the who's recording can be in the studio. The other guys can come later after work or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to go to Sunlight to record, and it turned out to be a nightmare. It was just hell, really. It was, to this day, it's probably the worst recording experience I've had, because at any given time, there were 3 other bands in the studio.
Oh my God.
Either mixing, recording, or just hanging out, basically. So, and we worked with we didn't work so much with Thomas Skogsberg, who was like the legendary producer. We worked with Fred Estby, who was drummer for Dismember, and another guy, I forget his name now, but he I think he played keyboards for Helicopters, if you know that band. Nick Anderson from Entombed had band called the Helicopters.
Yeah.
And so we worked with those 2 guys, alternating. But and then they said, "What the hell is he done here?" And they start to repatch stuff, and we felt like, all right, this is not a good working environment. This is not how it's going to work. And yeah, it was just crazy, and we were inexperienced. We hadn't spent a lot of time in studios. We didn't really know how things were supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to bring our own amps into the studio. Like we wanted to rent. We really liked Mesa Boogie rectifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to rent those, and we wanted to rent drums and bring it in, but they told us, just save your money. It's going to sound fine with all what we got here. And they had some like old Marshalls that probably weren't like kept really well, and they had some mishmash drums that they put together. So at the end of the day, the recording it was shit. It was absolutely horrible. It was and Thomas, he was like, we're gonna fix it in the mix, and then like, we're gonna fix it in the master, and we're like, no, you're not gonna be able to fix this with anything. Like it's crap. It's crap from the beginning. It's gonna be crap no matter what you do with it. You can't polish a turd, and we realized that material was good, but the way it was recorded was terrible. So we called up Brian Slagle and said, listen, like, this recording, we can't release this. This sucks. This is fucking horrible. And Brian was like, well, you guys still have some money left on the budget, right? Yeah. So what do you want to do? And we're like, we want to call Peter Tekgren and ask him if he can record this again. Like, do it. Just call. So we called Peter, and Peter later told us that when he got the call, he was standing at the local gas station where he lives, like in really like countryside, like a bit north of Stockholm. And he was like, oh, okay, so you want me to re-record? Well, I'll see if I have the time. I'll get back to you. And then when he hung up, he told us, he was like, yes. Like, really well, like, all right, that was cool. So we went there to re-record the whole thing, and working with Peter worked a lot better. But we also took the experience that we had from the Sunlight Studios and went with our gut feelings about stuff, renting the amps we wanted, making sure we had good drums in the studio and stuff like that, So we learned from our mistakes pretty quickly.
Wow. And that was pretty crazy that Brian let you guys re-record that album like that on your first record too, right? Put the budget out there for it.
Definitely so. I mean, he could have just easily just said, well, this is a nightmare. Like, dropped us like a
yeah, that's great. He believes in you guys to redo it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Metal Blade and the way they treated us, I mean, it's a testimony to their way of working with us, that we stayed with them for so long. I mean, even until the last album, Berserker, is also released on Metal Blade. So at least in the United States, and in Europe it's Sony, but it's a collaboration. So
yeah, great. What was going on in the metal scene at the time of that recording, and who were some of the bands that kind of influenced your sound at the time of that record?
I think a lot of the inspirations that we had, I would say musically, definitely At the Gates, Entomb, Dismember, Edge of Sanity, for sure. Desultory also, I would say. So those bands are bands that we really looked up to. But I mean, obviously we were kids of the 80s, we listened to like Slayer, big influence, Iron Maiden, big influences. So I know at the time also that the main songwriter, well, pretty much he all at the time, and he listed his main influences at the time as Slayer, Merciful Fate, and DRI. So
it's a mixture.
So I don't know, but I mean, those are at least some of the bands that we were listening to a lot and took a lot of inspiration from. But I think I think otherwise at that time, black metal was getting really, really big.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of music that we were doing was actually kind of declining in popularity because everybody wanted to be in a black metal band and paint their faces and all that stuff. And we didn't do any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that one of the biggest bands that were, coming out at the time was Dissection in Sweden, for sure. But also In Flames, who were kind of exploding really and becoming huge, and Soilwork as well, Falling in Flames, were doing really well and really reaching out like on a wider scale, playing bigger shows than any of those other bands that we looked up to had ever done. So obviously those were bands that we looked up to as well and felt that if they can do it, we can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
But as it turns out, we worked a little bit slower than most.
Did Amon Amarth intentionally start out to kind of follow Viking themes, or how did those themes start to come up in the songwriting process in those days?
Well, the thing was like, I wrote from the start when I joined Scum. I wrote all the lyrics, and I was very much influenced by Iron Maiden, as I said, Metallica, like Slayer, different bands. Iron Maiden. Did I say Iron Maiden? Maybe I repeated myself. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But so for me, I took a lot of lyrical inspiration from other bands. But for one song, I felt that I wanted to write a song about something that interested me, which was Vikings and Viking history and mythology. So I wrote a song called Thor Rise. It had really terrible lyrics. But I think when we wrote that song, we all felt we had something in there because we all kind of shared the same interest in Norse mythology, and there was a band that really influenced in those areas as well in Sweden called Bathory. Which we listened to a lot back then. So I would say the fact that they wrote about Norse mythology and history kind of gave us the courage to also do that. But it was very controversial in Sweden at the time because basically if you showed any type of interest in Norse mythology or Viking history, that was the same as being like a Nazi almost.
Really?
Even if you weren't, but because that was like the sign of the times. There was a lot of issues, especially in Stockholm, with skinheads and like neo-Nazis, and they would be wearing like Viking symbols such as runes, Thor's hammers, the Sun Cross, stuff like that, right? So that was like it was a difficult road to take for us, especially here in Sweden, because one of the biggest metal magazines in Sweden is called, or was called at the time, they don't exist anymore, but Close Up. They were very much like anti, like right wing. I mean, we were never political in any way, really. I mean, if anything, we were more like social democrat, which is like because we're working class kids, But they were really much anti, like, was banned from that magazine. It's hard to reach out to fans in Sweden, for sure. Fortunately for us, that didn't really matter because we were with Metal Blade, and Metal Blade just opened their office in Germany. Through those channels, we could grow in Germany, especially, and kind of reach out that way instead. So it didn't really bother us so much, except that, you know, for the fact that people stamp you as something you're not just because of what you're interested in, which seemed very wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But anyways, since I kind of digressed from the answer there, but that's kind of, we felt that the topics resonated very well with our music, basically. So that's kind of why we kind of went with the theme. And it wasn't really supposed to be like the band's general theme. It just kind of grew into that, because the more I read and the more we can explore different musical like themes and stuff like that, the more I realized there's a lot of stuff in here that, you know, it's a really rich history and rich mythology, and so yeah, it really fitted the band really well.
Perfect. Let's talk about the touring opportunities that came up after the release of this album. What presented itself to you guys?
Well, basically, the only thing available for us as a band was something that was going on here in Europe a lot in the 90s. And there was this Belgian touring company called Metal App that would organize these massive festival tours with like 9 or 10 bands, you know. And it would be like, generally it would be like 2 weeks of constant shows every day, no days off, which was fine for us because we got like half an hour. And for us, it was like kind of it was a buy on spot, basically. So how that works is that the label paid the touring company to have us on the tour. For us, this was amazing. And when we were going on this first tour, Summer Clash, it was called Summer Clash. We was headlined by D-Side, 6 Feet Under, and then it was Brutal Truth, and then us, and then Nagelfar. I think there may have been, oh yeah, God Be Throned, I think, was on there as well. Anyways, it was just, you know, it was crazy, you know. D-Side, legendary band, like Glenn Benton, obviously very scary for us. He's the coolest guy ever, you know. We got to know him then, and he was like super cool. But you know, it was for us, it was like, it's Glenn Benton. But anyway, so it was 2 weeks basically traveling on what we would call the pentagram routing, because we were going like this.
That's all.
Like across Europe. So it started really weird because we were going, we were flying from on the morning flight from Stockholm down to Amsterdam, where we're going to pick up at a tour bus. And we knew that the other Swedish band on that bill, Nagelfar, were going to be on the same flight. But they're from up north, and like we've never met them. We didn't know them at all. But our preconception of people from up north is that they drink, and they drink a lot. So we decided that we were going to show them, you know, like who drinks most here. So we started drinking like hell, even on the way to the airport in the morning, like 5 a.m. So by the time we got on the plane, we were fucking hammered. And at that time, they would still be like serving alcohol. Like basically, you didn't have to pay for it even. So we're like, all right, bring in some more. So we started, and we got louder, and we made up songs about Nagelfar, how they should jump off the plane, and we were just being obnoxious, you know. But those guys were completely sober. So after a while, they got really tired of it. Says, "Oh, it's fuck it," and they said, "Like, let's have a couple of drinks." So they bussed the flight attendant to bring them some drinks, and she said, "Well, I'm sorry, we're up," and pointed to us. They drank it all. So then we get to Amsterdam, and the bus is delayed, and we have no idea why. Nobody's there to greet us. We're just sitting around, and we're fucking wasted. And I think our bass player Ted puked on the floor in the arrival hall. It's just mayhem. And the bus arrives, and we're supposed to share that with Brutal Truth, Nagelfar, and us in the same bus. So we get on the bus, and D-side is on it too, because their flight was delayed. So they're on our bus as well. And we're just making a racket. So I go on. At the time, Glenn Benton was sober, by the way. So I go on there. I have a bottle of whiskey in my hands. "Hey, you want some?" He said, "No, sorry, man. I can't drink that." I said, "Oh, too bad." Chugging. Ted went up to Eric Hoffman, who was obviously a bodybuilder type guy, and just, "Oh, this is real." Just started feeling his muscles, and then he puked in the sink, and everyone's like, you know. It was just so mayhem. So it turns out that our bus picked up the side because they were supposed to play a Dynamo together with 6 Feet Under, but 6 Feet Under couldn't wait for them because they were kind of running late. So our bus picked these up, and we go to Dynamo. So they're trying to organize so that we get passes to get into the festival, since we're going to stay there all day, right? Mm-hmm. But we're obviously super hammered. And what happens is that the wife of the guy who owns the touring company, Metalist, she is trying to organize passes for us. And our guitar player at the time, he was a little bit, you know, when he got drunk, he got a little bit loud and obnoxious. So he went up to the poor people standing there trying to help us out, like, "Where's my fucking pass? I need my pass now, blah, blah, blah. Do you know who I am?" Of course they didn't. And then the wife of she says, "But calm down, calm down. We're trying to fix this." I said, "Who the fuck are you, you fucking bitch?" And that's the wife of the owner of the touring company.
Oops.
So we got our passes. We spend the day at Dynamo and go to the first show in Strasbourg, and we're hanging on by a thread. Basically, Johan, the guy who owned the company, he called the label boss in Germany, Michael Tringert, and said, "Hey, listen, these guys are off the tour." And he had to beg him to keep us on the tour. So finally he said, Olavi apologized 1,000 times, and you know, and she accepted it, but he had his eye on us the whole time, but we were allowed to stay on the tour anyways. But yeah. That's awesome. That's the first tour. That's how it started.
Man, that's great. I wanted to ask a little bit, since this is going to be part of the Vinyl of the Month Club, what about the artwork for that first record? How did that artwork come to be? Do you remember anything about that?
Oh yeah, definitely so. I mean, I think it was Ted who came up with the idea, because at the time it was a very popular movie. I'm not sure how big it was in the US, but in Sweden it was super popular. It was The Crow with Brennan.
Oh yeah.
And there was this promo pic of him walking through a door, backlit.
Yeah.
So the idea was to mimic that, but to make it into a Viking theme idea. So what we did was we took a picture of the door to a wooden church in Norway, It's like a legendary, like they call it a staff church because they're really tall and like, so it's very intricately carved with Viking like ornaments, Viking times ornament. Mm-hmm. So we took that gate, and there was this guy working for a PR firm, I think, like doing commercials and advertising and stuff, who helped us put all that stuff together. So on his spare time, basically. So he designed the whole cover artwork, and we took the pictures of ourselves with, you know, silhouettes type, and he organized the flames, and he even did one thing, because we took pictures of fire, actually, instead of like drawing it, we took pictures of actual fires, and he put it together. And he even in Photoshop, and this is like 97.
Yeah, it's cutting edge.
So you can imagine the tools that they had at hand. But in Photoshop, he actually draw this demon's head in the fire above us, which is pretty cool, I think. So using the fire that was there, so it's pretty cool. But so that's how it came about, and he did it for free, or maybe we paid him something, but it was definitely not as much as the work was worth in that case. So that was really cool.
That's great. And how did that record position you guys for your next release, The Avenger?
I think it did. I think as a release goes, it did really well, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think also that that, you know, for us, it gave us confidence to go into recording the new album. But obviously, we felt we needed to work quickly to release a new album. Unfortunately, unfortunately, by that time, Martin Lopez had already started in Opeth, and Opeth was kind of also becoming really big and like making it. And his style of drumming, to be fair, was probably better suited for them. Mm-hmm. So he said, like, listen, I would love to keep working with you guys, but I have to make a choice here, because it's going to be a lot of touring, and I'm not going to be able to do both bands probably. And I'm going to go with Opeth. And we said we totally understand. Like, why wouldn't he at that time? Completely understood that. So we parted ways with him, and which left us without a drummer, and we had an album to write basically, and we wanted to work quickly. So we I think we knew Fredrik Andersson a little bit from his other band, A Canaris Quintet, and Olavi said, let's call him up and see if he want to work with us instead. And as it has it, when Olavi called, The Canaris Quintet had just broken up, basically. They decided not to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So he was out of a band, and he was like, yeah, I can come over. So it worked out really fine. But then we wanted to work, as we wanted to work fast, and we kind of already booked the studio. So The Avenger became a little bit shorter than it should have been, but it still gave us a lot of confidence moving forward. And I think there's a lot of potential in that album and the one that follows as well. But we were not in a position where we could like focus so much on just, you know, digging, like we couldn't put that much time into writing the songs and polish them as we wanted. And I also think one of the main, looking back, one of the main things we should have done differently is probably actually have a producer for the albums instead of producing ourselves, because what happened a lot was there was 5 people pulling in their own direction, and there was no one having the overall view of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're recording, that's not a good idea, because all of a sudden you don't really know how the drums and the guitars are going to sound together, and you want to have a specific sound for the guitars, but that might not work with the sound that you're having for the drums or the bass. And so all of a sudden it's really difficult to get everything to work together. And if you have someone with the overview, they can kind of work with that in a better way. But I still think the albums came out really good for what they were. And you know, obviously hindsight, you can always find stuff that you could have done better, but I know for a fact that it would have been difficult for us to do it very much differently than we did back then. So
nice. What is the band up to now, and what's next for Amon Amarth amongst all this crazy that we have in the world here?
Well, currently we're basically just hanging out. Well, we kind of just started talking about writing new stuff, because for us, when everything opens up again for touring and stuff, it doesn't really make sense to pick up where we left off, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to do festivals this summer, but since that's going to be very difficult to pull off, we decided to, well, most of them are going to be canceled. Maybe a couple of the festivals end of summer could potentially still happen, but we don't know that. And since it's headlining shows, you know, we need to bring in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just a big mess to do that on short notice, you know. Mm-hmm. So we decided just to call the whole summer off. So and instead of, you know, trying to go out there and tour on an old album when touring starts again, and all these bands that have released albums and are releasing albums now are going to be heading out on the road and competing about everything. Mm-hmm. We felt like that's going to be a nightmare, you know. So yeah. So we pretty much decided, all right, let's call it quits here, and let's just like reboot, go back to writing a new album, and then we can tour on that when time comes. Because as I said before, we are fortunate to be in a situation where we can do that, but it's a little bit more difficult for other bands, I'm sure. So it's I totally understand if you want to head out on the road, but we have the position where we can take the luxury of being a little bit more patient.
Any other projects that you're working on that you want to discuss? You mentioned one in an email that we were going back and forth on earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, musically, I've been doing some guest stuff. I'm gonna do. I've been approached by some people to do some stuff, but I'm not sure if I can talk about it yet, because it's like really early in the stage. But one thing that was just released was I did guest vocals for Powerwolf on one of their old songs for an album they just released, which is kind of like a bonus album, I think. Otherwise, I'm obviously working still with my web shop company, Grimfrost, that's doing pretty well. So I have that on the side, which now also has a record label that produces like Norse inspired folk music.
Oh, cool. What's the name of that label?
Grimfrost Records.
Grimfrost Records. Okay.
Yeah. So so I'm doing a little bit of that, and then my wife and I are doing. And my wife is a yoga teacher, but we're doing kind of it's yoga inspired movement basically, but it's all kind of stuff. It's for physical well-being, but also like on a more mental level. And what we want to do is take inspiration from the Norse history, our own history and our own mythology, rather than maybe from the Indian Hindu history and mythology, the yogic tradition, to make it more adaptable for people who feel like us, you know, that it's good to move the body, but not necessarily, you know, use the same metaphors, because a lot of stuff about the yogic tradition now, especially in the Western culture, is that everything has to be love and light. But if you work with your mind and your body, you know that not everything is going to be love and light. There's going to be some dark shit in there too. And I think you can deal with it, but just imagine yourself being love and light about everything. You kind of have to be in the process and be in the darkness to grow. And that's kind of where I think the Norse mythology on a psychological and spiritual level has a lot to teach us. And it's really interesting when you're digging deeper into it, that it's fascinating how how intricate it is. Even if it's that originally is a spoken tradition, and it's not even a living tradition, but if you look at everything, you kind of understand that, like, the psychology and the philosophy and the spirituality of it really resonates with how we work as human beings, and how darkness is a part of that, and it's an important part of that, and everybody has it. You know, it's a matter of how you deal with it. So that's kind of what we want to explore on a physical and mental level as well. So it's an interesting concept, and really enjoy it. And we have that on something called Boon TV, boon.tv. So if anybody listening want to check it out and try out, you can always buy a class separately, or if you feel that this is something for you, you can become a member and join the classes. It's both yoga inspired classes, but we also do workouts that we call them in between battle workouts. So it's every Friday, like a short high intensity Tabata style training. So like a interval training that we do, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's also, the idea is to show you that you don't have to be like a super athlete or anything to do this. You can just do it, because moving is basically what we all need to do more of. And whether you go to the gym or do it at home in front of the computer, like, you know, the Tabata style things, they're 25 minutes. The yoga practices, they're between 30 minutes and 1 hour. So it's not a lot of time. We want to make it like that time-wise people can actually do it, and yeah, it should be easy to do it and find time for it.
That's really interesting. Cool. Well, good luck with that, Johan. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a bit frustrating as well, but because we kind of had to learn a new profession, like filming everything ourselves, and, you know, working with sound, and you know,
you're actually filming it in a studio. You're filming it professionally.
Yeah, we have my wife before the pandemic, she did yoga classes in our house. We have a studio in our house. So now that we're not doing the yoga studios here anymore, yoga classes here anymore, we built the recording studio in that room. So that's where we're doing it, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's challenging as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We'll make sure we get this in here. This is really
it's called the Heggveger. It's the same as the show on Gimme Metal App, Heggveger.
Yeah. Cool. Johan, I know we went way over, so thank you so much for spending the time. Would you mind doing a stinger for the Between the Lines show? Like a radio ID for the show?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, cool.
Hi, this is Johan Hegg from Amon Amarth, and you are listening to was it
Between the
Lines?
Right? Yeah.
In Between the Lines.
Between the Lines.
Oh yeah. See, I was like, all right, let's do it again.
Right.
Hi, this is Johan Hegg from Amon Amarth, and you are listening to Between the Lines on GimmeRadio.com.
Awesome. Johan, it was great catching up, man. Thank you so much. And this is gonna be good. This is gonna air next Friday.
Oh, so, cool.
I'm gonna put it together.
Send me a link or something. I'll make sure to share it on my social.
Cool, we'll do. And then I know that we're gonna do like a kind of a special Amon Amarth Day, I think, around this too. So
yeah, I think I heard something about that.
Yeah. So this will be great. I'm looking forward to putting this together. And then I've been recording the video. I hope you don't mind. But
that's fine.
They wanted to actually, they wanted to use this on Gimme TV too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so I'll edit this up. If there's something that you think back to, you're like, I didn't want to say that about somebody or something, just let me know and I'll edit it out. But you were pretty good. You were pretty edited.
I think I said what I wanted to say. And
it's perfect. Yeah,
it's nothing that we haven't said before, really. I mean, the documentary as well. Everything is in there as well. So.
Okay. Well, cool. Yeah. Thanks, man. Well, thanks for the time again, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon. All right.
All right. My pleasure, and I hope to be back soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Johan. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.